Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. I'm Ravi, Lulla. Andrew Rogers here with me. We are joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by our guy, Old DB, Damon Benning. What's going on, buddy?
Hi, buddy. How are you?
He said OLE, not OLD, DB, just so you know.
It was OL apostrophe.
So, Drew Down, you got to get that corrected. It's OL apostrophe.
Oh, my apologies. I'm in the Christmas spirit where everything has an E at the end.
Not like Ole Miss.
Hey, so it's funny, Andrew. Do you do you mess with him sometimes about like his old isms and his particulars? Because he's got a few of those. Ravi should have probably been born in the 60s.
I got to tell you, we went through the Gen Z words on Wednesday, and Ravi hit every single one on the nose. So I don't know if I can.
That's not fair. He's around kids.
But he doesn't like them.
Yeah, I know. That's true. That's because they're the younger they are, the worse Ravi is. If they're older, if they're a little older, Drew Down, he can handle it.
Yeah, I like DB's kids.
Yeah. I don't even like my own kids.
Well, listen, they like me. I like them. It's all good.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how you kind of weaseled your way in there, but all the power to you, man. When they drive me crazy, you take responsibility, especially Micah.
Well, listen, I'll just tell him. I'll make sure I set him straight. Have a little Larry Bird conversation with Micah. It would be all good.
Yeah, he's ready to revisit the 2022 NBA draft with you too at the end of the season.
So let's do it.
Be prepared.
I'm just gonna have him on the show. I gotta ask, DB, because I know you're real particular about the first name last name thing. How uncomfortable did Coach Rhule make you, name dropping you like 7 times in that presser? Yeah,
I couldn't believe that. So I'm on, and you guys know I'm like super cringe. I'm in the car, and my buddy Kevin, he texts and he's like, "Hey, you got a shout out." So I didn't pay it any mind because my hands are full and I'm like, what is going on? And so then he texts me back. He's like, "Where are you?" I can't even remember what I said. I think I said in the car or something like that. But I still didn't. He said, "Coach," he said, "the presser." And I go, "Oh boy." So I didn't hear it until about 2 because Jessica Cootie sent me Caleb's deal from this morning because I was up at the school, so I didn't hear anything. So then my whole my sister, and she's like, "Hey, you just got and she wasn't even talking about the press conference. She was talking about on Big Ten Network, and they highlighted Caleb, and I'm like, I gotta get home. I didn't see anything. I probably was like, no, I'm dead serious. I didn't lock into anything that was going on media wise until 3 that day.
Wow.
It was.
You're always running around though.
I was gonna say, yeah. So I'm watching that press conference and I just sit there and I go, oh man, he's gonna hate this. But
Coach Rhule, he did call about 1:30.
Did he?
And I remember because of course Caleb didn't want to drive to school on signing day. He wanted to leave his car here. He's like, "Hey, can you drop me off? I'm done with my finals at 1." So I remember when Coach Rhule called, I drove around the parking lot and I texted him and told him I would be in the school in a little bit because I didn't want him to hear anything he said on the phone. So that part I do remember vividly.
DB, we're talking with Damon Benning, the color analyst for Nebraska football. DB, we talked to Caleb earlier this week, obviously on signing day, and he talked a lot about the trust that is built between Coach Rhule and the recruits and the players. I know you've experienced this a lot, not just with Caleb and other coaches that came calling either early or late on Caleb, but with a bunch of other guys that you've had recruited over the years, and then obviously with yourself as well in your recruiting process. How different is it, the experience with Coach Rhule versus other guys? Because it seems like the way guys talk about him, it seems like there's legitimately a difference in the way that guy operates. And I'm curious, because you have such a wide range of experiences with other coaches, like what have you seen?
He's just a natural. So, like it's kind of hard to fake or pretend to not be other centered, right? So if you don't really care about other people more than yourself, or if you don't really want to invest in young people, like over time, it reveals itself, because situations happen and you get squeezed, and you kind of have to, it'll, whatever's in you. I always say this, right? Whatever's in you is going to come out. So when he has to function and there's, it's not going real smooth and there's a little duress, like he always hunkers down around the young people. I sat with Tristan Alvano last night. He texted like 10 a.m. yesterday. He's like, hey, he knows, you guys both know, I very particular. I kind of sit, mind my own business in the game. He's like, hey, can I sit with you? And I felt bad. I was like, am I that big of a jerk where somebody has to call like 8 hours ahead of time?
Get approval.
If they can sit. Yeah, man, I did. I felt bad. I sat in the parking lot.
And then you told him no, right?
I sat no AR. Like I sat in the parking lot. I'm like, is it me, or does he have something serious he wants to talk about? Like it was like tugging at me a little. But anyway, so I'm talking to him last night about, he goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Like, our guys are going to be so lucky because you guys sound just like Coach Rhule at practice. I go, is that a good or a bad thing? and he goes, well, you're going to be prepared, and he starts talking about like some of the highs and lows and getting off social media. And he said, it's like through it all, just him kind of talking with Coach Rhule and spending time on what's important and kind of staying in the moment. He's like, he goes, he's awesome. He said he's unbelievable. And I just think it's in those times when he does his best work, Coach Rhule. Like when it's easy to be good and high functioning when everything's going well, but and trust me, no one knows this better than me. But sometimes it's hard to function at a high level when everything around you is, when you're kind of when you're in a bind. And so what he's able to do, even with recruiting with Dylan, right? Like he was savvy enough to kind of let it go. And then come back to it when he needed to and step on the gas, because he didn't have to change who he was. When he said, when he told me in February, like, hey, fine, you guys take your time. I understand. I trust the decision. I know kind of how the family operates. Like, so I knew that he was going to allow that recruiting process to be a little bit different. So just having a feel situationally for how to deal with people, it's kind of uncanny. Remember, AR probably knows this better than anybody, but remember how I always used to say, like, he's such a quick blinker, where we have these conversations, and sometimes I would be done talking, and I was like, did he just get one over on me? Like, I feel like he just totally sized me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he's just really I said this before. His greatest gift is discernment. Like, he can recognize what's going on with people, and he can do it in a hurry.
Well, so DB, speaking of that, because you had mentioned, like, you can't be overly effective when you feel like you're in a bind, and Coach Rhule knows his players. And I sat back yesterday and thought about the Eric Field situation, and knowing that
is tough.
I was going to say, knowing that I was going to get to talk to you today, I wanted to ask you, because he was somebody in your Super Six, somebody is super intriguing in that 2023 class. What do you think happened there?
Everybody on that campus knows, that was around Eric Fields, that watched him play, that watched him practice. This is 100% not a talent issue. He was incredible. Like, just talking to some of the guys, Tristan last night, he just was like, wow. Like, it it caught just about everybody off guard. And I'll respect kind of what I know about that situation and wait for that to kind of play out. But I think here's what I'll tell you, and I say this all the time. I tell it to our guys. I'll tell it to, I'd say it to Laquana. I'd say it to Michael Bird. I'd say it to whomever, right? When you go to school, when you play at a high level, and I don't care if it's Power 5, FCS, FBF, when you're asked to do something every day and do it at a high level, you have to have this thing in you that allows you to deal with life at the same time. Otherwise, it's hard, because it's not just about playing sports. It's about managing yourself when you're away from home, having a good handle on your emotions, having a good handle on the day-to-day. Like, it's hard to have somebody demand something of you all the time. It's my number one quality in looking for success for people in college is what I always say: they don't need a babysitter. And it sounds a little harsh, like they're young and they always need somebody to watch them. But what I'm really saying is 80% of succeeding at that level is the ability to repeat something at a benchmark level every day. The less deviation you have, the more success you're going to have. And ultimately in this game, the best ability is going to be availability, because you just have to keep showing up every single day. And I think it's not for everybody. And a lot of times it's not about, there's lots and lots and talented players. Some guys and gals they just don't want to be that repetitive every day. And I think we place all these expectations on high school players coming out, and we look at recruiting rankings and people star gaze, and they're like, oh, well, he was this, so he should be this. And it's the same thing that I even said about a guy like Dylan Raiola. I'll tell you how good Dylan is when I see how he operates every day. Like, I see lots of talented people, but I want to see how he operates every day with being told what to do. Some guys they're just not built for it. And so I'm always leery to just look at talent alone. And I'm already seeing it with this recruiting class, all these expectation levels. And I'm like, oh, fudge, I kind of know this guy. I've coached against him. I went out to go watch him play, or I've watched him or I've talked to his coach out in such and such a state. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not saying it gives me a leg up in terms of eval, but what I will say is excelling at a high level, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's sports or, I'm sure Bill and Chris can speak to it too. Sometimes it's about when you're successful doing something, sometimes it's just about the ability to hang in there. And that's a lot of it. So, Eric is a super kid, and I just, college takes a little bit of an adjustment period.
We're talking with Damon Benning, the analyst for Husker football on the Husker Radio Network. DB, out of this class, I know you said you've watched a lot of these guys, you've talked to a lot of their coaches, you've coached against a lot of these guys. Is there a guy in this class, and we'll take Caleb out of the equation because, it'd be a little biased there, but
I'd tell you the truth.
I know
all the time.
I know
all the time. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, he'll be honest.
Who in this class do you think is not getting enough attention that you think has the potential to be a really, really good player?
Oh, shoot, I would definitely use Caleb, but I won't for the sake of the exercise. There's probably a couple.
Hold on real quick before you answer for me. I want to touch on Caleb for a second. Is he big enough to play that Isaac Gifford spot? Because I think he would love that spot.
He will be.
Okay. Because he likes hitting people in like a lot.
Yeah, and he's so we talked like on film a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So he can play either or. I think he can play the field safety, where I think ideally they want to put a guy like Hartzog.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that. right? And maybe I just trying to speak that into existence. But really it's like Omar, where sometimes you'll see him down in the box. He can play on the second level, or he can play on the opposite side with like gifts. So that's kind of where I see it. But now, like, I keep talking to him about offense too, and I'm like, like it's everybody wants to play.
Hey, they need receivers, man. Get them out there.
Nah, I hope they're joking, but
not about returning punts.
Though, I told him he has to return punts.
So I'll give you one guy local, and I'll give you one guy kind of local. I really like Keelan Smith, as kind of a hybrid guy.
Okay.
I think he's still growing. He's got a weird body type. So he's not really a wideout. He's not really a tight end yet, but he's a tough guy. Like, I watch it. It's weird. I try to watch whole games too, and not just highlights. He doesn't mind when guys bang on him. He hangs in there. So I like his upside. And he played in a tough class in Missouri. So he has my attention. And then the other guy that I took, Eric, do you remember when I took? It was a kind of a mini meltdown when Nebraska went on the run of those DBs, and everybody was like, well, they don't have offers and they're taking reaches and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, Donovan Jones I like.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I like Donovan Jones. And here's the weird thing. The first thing that I like about Donovan is like how he was raised, like his family structure. Because Donovan's a guy that always goes to work. He's very dependable. And he wasn't always the biggest. He wasn't always the fastest. He wasn't always the quickest. But it's almost like in his middle school years, he kind of just went and disappeared. He just kind of got in the lab. You know, he would go work out. He would train, and he'd grow the next year. And then as a sophomore, he'd grow again. I'm like, oh God, and he's a really, really good kid. So, and so I think he wants to do well. Like we undersell that. Like, how much do you actually want to be good at what you're doing? It's a very, very underappreciated skill. How great do you want to be? DJ wants to be great. I think he played in a defense in which he had to do a lot of things, and sometimes it wasn't always asked of him. Sometimes it was just his instincts. And so I really like Donovan Jones. I kind of like Donovan because it's Micah's favorite non-Benning in the class. No, it really is. Like, Mike has been talking about Donovan for like 2 years. And so he came onto the scene late.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that I like locally.
Now, okay, so Ravi brought up the wide receiving room there briefly, just kind of a quick point. And, now that Nebraska has their quarterback of the future, DB, or at least it seems to be that way, it's time to start filling holes around that position. But I'm not sure the wide receiver position is actually as pressing as people may think it is. When Julian Fleming was available, and he was like an instant yes to the room, but that, of course, was contingent with McCord. But before I guess Dylan Raiola was the guy, maybe that was the thought process. But now that he is the guy, is it necessary to grab veteran help or somebody big in the portal at that skill position to elevate the game? Because DR is that guy that elevates the games around him.
I hope so. I hope you're right. Like, I think so, but I'm always a little gun shy. Can I say that in 2023? Well, it's almost 2024, so I can.
Yeah, you're good. You get away with it.
I'm always a little gun shy about, like, saying whether somebody just coming out of high school can elevate the collegiate guys. So I'll put that to the side just for a second, and I'll say it like this. I think Raiola is talented enough where if all the other intangibles come with it, he definitely raises the floor and the ceiling. Okay. So I think I can say that and be safe, but I'm totally with you on the wide receiver room. The young guys will continue to get better. The tight end room should be better than it was a year ago. You've got some good additions, and I said this for 3 months. The guy that we're forgetting about it, the way just Bell can be a good player. He is.
You say Demetrius Bell there?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, you cut out for a second. Go ahead.
Extremely talented. And I know he's young, and you don't want to make a living with the young guys running routes, but maybe one more veteran wide receiver to kind of steady the ship. But the room will be significantly better than a year ago. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind another veteran wide receiver, but just like I wouldn't mind a veteran running back. So, but the key to the running back spot is, I mean, maybe Nebraska thinks that they're going to get Ramir Johnson back, and he can plug one of the holes, and then you get another young guy to kind of step up. So, yeah, I think it's secondary, not necessary at the wide receiver spot.
DB, we've got about a minute and a half here with you. I will give
fast,
you.
doesn't it?
Unbelievable.
It sure does. I will give you either a running back, a wide receiver, or any other position group on the field. You get one veteran guy. I wouldn't call him an impact transfer, but a guy that helps the room and is a good player. Which position are you taking?
Quarterback.
Okay. You want somebody that kind of let the
talking about steadying a ship.
Yeah, steady the ship before.
I want to bridge the gap, and I want to calm the room.
Okay.
Because, and I say this the other way. I said since I've been doing radio, I said good athletic, quarterbacks that can make a play can make OCs lazy. They're like, oh, eventually, hey, make a play. He'll make a play. So it's not intentional. It's just, he'll get us out of it. So just the opposite happens with young QBs. They take an extra amount of time. They take an extra amount of attention. And so all the extras that room gets, that attention isn't going somewhere else. So I would take a player coach in that room to model how to be a college quarterback at this level. Because right now, that guy really isn't in the room. Harburg has the advantage because he knows what it takes, but he just hasn't done it long enough to model. So I would take a veteran QB.
There you go. That is our guy, old DB Damon Benning. Hey, but
OL apostrophe. I'm a lifelong learner like Coach Rhule.
OL apostrophe, not Olay like potato Olays or Ole Miss.
Although that's the one thing you can't just eat one of. That's why I don't go near those things.
DB, it's great to talk to you as always. Happy holidays. Nothing but the best to you and your family.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas
travels,
to you,
AR,
too.
if you're going
Thank you.
home.
Thank you. Going home today.
Okay, buddy. All right, buddy.
We will be back.